Hey Slingers, another week, another Wordslinger podcast. I'm glad you could drop by. Now today I'm talking to Justin Sloan. He's a good friend of mine. He's also a former co-host of mine on a couple of podcasts. We're going to be talking to him about transitioning from writing for the gaming industry to writing full-time, plus some great news that you're going to want to stick around for, so see you on the other side. This episode of the Wordslinger podcast is brought to you by Draft to Digital. Convert your manuscript, distribute it online, and get support the whole way at drafttodigital.com.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
And I am Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger. I am so glad you're here, because otherwise it's just me talking to a camera with a funky microphone in front of me. Thanks for being around. I'm coming off of some interesting stuff RV wise. I like to give little updates about the RV. I hope you don't mind. But before we get into the interview with Justin Sloan today, I just got the RV back from a renter, and a bunch of stuff went wrong for these folks on their trip. I was very, it made me very anxious, but I came to grips with it. There really wasn't much to do, although I did have to drop $300 on a repair that I shouldn't have had to make, but. It's not their fault. I mean, things go wrong. That's what happens with RVs. RVs break. They just break. Everything breaks. Everything on an RV is just cheaply built and it breaks. But I had a couple of issues that wasn't thrilled about. I got an issue with the windshield wipers. They just disintegrate every single time I've ever used them, ever. They've just disintegrated. Parts fall off on them, from them. They overextend. They never work. The windshield wipers never ever work. And then the renter calls me at like 11 o'clock one night this past week to say that first that the auto leveling wasn't working and that there was a problem there. It turns out that doesn't seem to be a problem at all. I think that one was a fluke. But when he was stepped out to try to check things out, the little automated step, the retractable step, broke. Sheared off a bolt. So I got to fix that. But as it turns out, Thor, after a lot of persuasion from me, I managed to leverage my social media presence and my platform. They ended up finding out I was an author and a podcaster with a large platform. And I managed to leverage that to get them to finally get back to me with the information I needed, and they sent me a couple of recalls. One was for the windshield wipers, of course, and then there was one for that step. So I get to take those in and have those fixed, I think. So that's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to getting that. Unfortunately, I have another renter picking the thing up in just a couple of days. So, and that's a big rental, and I don't want to lose it. They're going to have it for a month. So, oh man. This is the life of RV rental is interesting, but it's been this has been good. This has been a good learning process. I'm very handy anyway, but it's been good to get my hands on the RV and learn some things about it in a new way. It takes some of the edge off. It takes away some of the anxiety about it when you're intimate with how things work, when you put your hands on it and learn how to do it. I talked about this, I think, last time. It's been a good experience, and I wouldn't necessarily trade it. I would like to have just money coming in with no effort, but, it's a good life lesson to take to heart. Speaking of money coming in with no effort, my good friend Justin Sloan, if you're a listener, if you're a longtime listener, you know that I interviewed him on this show a couple of years ago now. And not only that, but he and I were co-hosts on two different shows. There's his show, the Creative Writing Career Podcast, which I was a co-host with him and Stefan Bugay. I think I'm still technically a co-host, but we haven't really done any work together on that for quite some time now. But we were also co-hosts on Nick Thacker's show, the Self-Publishing Answers podcast. And so I've done a lot of work with Justin. I've gotten to hang out with him in person a few times. We've gone to some conferences together. He's a real good guy. He's he's in his gaming, when he was writing for games, I mean, he wrote for some pretty big name games. I mean, he wrote for Game of Thrones, Tales of the Borderlands, Walking Dead. He wrote for the Marvel games. He's got quite a resume behind him. We're going to be talking to him about transitioning from game writing to full-time novel writing. He is making his full-time living with that work. When we talked to him the first time, he wanted to do that. And there have always been questions of discoverability, how to get people to notice your work and pick it up. But he worked into a relationship with like Michael Anderle, who you've also heard on this show. Did some collaboration work there, which helped kind of jumpstart things a little. But he's also done collaborations and co-authoring with other authors, and that work seems to do pretty well for him. So hard to argue with his results. I'm really interested. As you may or may not know, I've done only a couple of collaborations. I've done some stuff with Nick Thacker, but I've also lately. Now I think I'm safe in announcing this because he announced it himself on Facebook to people following him. But I'm going to be co-authoring something with Ernest Dempsey. You may remember him from a previous episode. We're both archaeological thriller authors, and we've taken a look at each other's work. We've sniffed each other's butts, and we think we could work well together. So we both had a similar idea at the same time, is what happened. And decided that rather than write competing books, which we don't really believe in competing books, but if rather than write two books on essentially the same topic at around the same time, we will combine our powers. By our powers combined, we will have a book and or series. So we're going to start with a book. We'll see how that works out. But real excited about that. I love Ernie. He's a good guy. We're very similar. We have similar backgrounds. We're constantly amazed at the things we have in common. So it's good. It's good to meet bros like that out in the world. And I tend to lapse into bromance mode with guys like Ernie. I'm surprised Ernie and I are not already doing a podcast together. We've talked about some things. So anyway, I don't want to roll this on too long. I want to get right into this interview so you can get the biggest bang for your buck. I hope you enjoy this chat with my good friend, Justin Sloan. Stick around afterwards. We got some news items you're really going to want to hear about. Some stuff about BookFunnel and new print codes, which you're going to dig. Kobo and their relationship with Walmart. We got an update on that. And my favorite story of all, I'm going to make this my story of the week, how you as an author can lease a virtual Apple Mac for your own personal use. So stick around after the interview for that news, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey, welcome to the Creative Writing Career Podcast. No, hey, welcome to the Wordslinger podcast. And today I'm talking to a good friend of mine. He's been a co-host of mine on his show, the Creative Writing Career Podcast, which I haven't been on in quite some time, unfortunately. But I'm talking to Justin Sloan. He's the author of Star Forged, which you ought to be able to pick up right about now on Amazon. And we're gonna have a great conversation, man. It's been a while, Justin. We haven't talked much.
Yeah, I'd say it was still our show, Creative Writing Career Podcast. It's just I'm the only one doing it anymore.
and I mean, I don't know. I don't even really know why. Like, I'm here. If you want to hit me up, man, look, just let me know. I never know when anybody's coming on. So
yeah, I think we tried to schedule it for a while, and then we just kind of gave up, and then it just rolled from there. So
well, then everybody moved. Everybody's like, when I went on the road in the RV, that kind of made some things impossible.
Right.
I don't even really know why. It shouldn't have. But there were just all these complications, and I kept moving. You're moving. You had babies. There's all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Who knows what happened to Stefan? I think actually Stefan may have been co-opted by one of the robots that he was working on there at Hanson.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that Stefan wasn't a robot anyway.
Yeah, we missed that guy. He officially bowed out at some point. Unlike us, where we're just kind of we didn't know what happened. We're just kind of oh, let's do it here and there if we feel like it.
Oh, did he actually drop out? He was too
officially,
busy.
yeah, he officially bowed out. He's like, I know we've been trying to schedule, like for a while we were talking about doing it on Sundays or 9 o'clock at night on weekdays, or
Yeah.
like all these options were coming up, but everybody's just like, nothing's working. Let's call it.
And I'm just going to be honest with you, man. Other than the occasional one-off, I am just not going to do a Sunday 9 o'clock show.
No way. Yeah. I try to do these around like 1 o'clock when I know I'm going to feel like needing a break from my writing. Today was not that day. Today we had to go register for my daughter for school and deal with all this paperwork and all this stuff. So it's been a fun day of 45 minutes of writing so far.
Yeah.
Right. One in the
now I kind of forgot to look it up. I should have looked it up, but you've actually been on the Wordslinger podcast once before. Back before. Yeah. And that was before we did our thing. That's before.
Yeah. It was before I was really a writer, really. I mean, I kind of was, but I was doing the video game thing. I was at Telltale at the time, and I had been on this self-publishing podcast because of that, mostly to talk about the video game stuff, which isn't exactly, self-publishing, but I was getting into it. And so they figured that was kind of interesting to see like how a video game guy transitions. And yeah, lots of stuff has happened since then.
Yeah, man. So among those things, you're no longer working in the video game industry.
Right. Yeah. I went to one other place in between, and then one other video game place, along with working as an editor at military.com for a bit. And then realized, why am I not writing books all the time? This is silly.
That was my question. There was a point in there. There was a point in there where you were making enough to make a full-time living at the writing, and then you went back to a job anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm your friend. I support you in your decision. I don't understand your decision, but I support you. What happened there?
Yeah. Well, so that's basically what happened is I realized real soon, like, yes, this is still writing and it's fun and it's video games, but it's not nearly hitting the creative buttons that I want it to hit, because when you're writing your own books, you can do what you want, be creative. You can still get that collaborative aspect by working with other people, working with cool beta readers, working with awesome editors and artists. It hits a lot of the same buttons, and I wasn't hitting those buttons at the day job to the degree that I wanted to. And then also like you said, the money. So I was looking at it, I was like, wait a minute, this money is starting to go down now because I'm not quite able to give as much as I was towards the books.
Right.
So yeah, I talked to my wife and I was like, listen, if we want to keep this income going strong, I kind of have to devote myself to the books. And so then when I ended up leaving, we had like a backlog of how Amazon pays 60 days later. So then we had like a 2-month dip because of me taking that day job.
Yeah.
Where we had to make up for. But yeah, definitely the right choice. I'm looking back on it now, and it's ended up in some great places.
Yeah, because you are full-time now. You're making full-time living. You're making a pretty good living at this now.
Yeah, for 1 year now. It's been a year.
For a full year.
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy. I mean, I we had all those discussions, early on about, what do we got to do to break it? What do we got to do to make it? And I've been watching you, dude. I'm busting proud of you. I'm glad, I'm real happy to see your success.
Yeah, it's funny if anybody wants to go back and listen to the old episode and listen to now. I think at the time I was making like $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month,
Yeah.
And it's more than that now. So it's awesome.
It's more than that. Yeah. Yeah. So you're, so what do you think has been the secret of that? Like what do you contribute that success to?
Smart people for sure. Mentors, finding people around me who I could learn from. For example, when I partnered with Michael Anderle, I learned a lot from that guy. We have different writing styles as far as our prose, and I wasn't trying to change my prose, but I learned a lot about readership and what stories they want. And so there's a lot of not self-published. There's a lot of people who prefer to read indie fiction because a lot of indie writers will have fun with it and make it fun. And they're not as worried about like, oh, does this fit the proper story format? They're worried about, is this really, really fun? Are these characters super amazing? And is this somebody you want to go to the mall with and do some shopping with and then go beat up some bad guys after together with?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of stuff I learned from writing with him, and that I've definitely started applying more to my own fiction. Like I'm less worried about, in screenwriting, we do a lot of, the save the cat stuff, and you have the dark moment of the soul, and you think about all this. And in my early books, there was a lot of that. You spend like 2 or 3 chapters where he's gone through the dark moment of the soul. He's at his bottom. He's trying to figure out how can he get up. And then he stands up and goes and fights the bad guy. But some readers kind of just want to go fight the bad guy and just say, screw the dark moment stuff. Screw all that emo crap. I just want to go out there and know that I can kick butt, because they're dealing with whatever in their day jobs, or they're dealing with medical issues or something. And they don't want to be like depressed. They want to be thinking, okay, there is a thing that's in my way. It lasts about a paragraph. And then we kick it in the face and we tear off its arm and beat it to death with it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. No, I get it, man. It's escapism, right? I mean, you don't go see, an Evil Dead movie for these, the psychological and existential angst, like you go to see Bruce Campbell with a chainsaw arm taking down undead. So,
probably like that stuff, but it's a different readership. And I think it's a lot easier to hit the indie readership by keeping it happy and keeping it upbeat. And some books it's fine to do. Some people do quite well doing it the other way, but it's all about also what readership you can reach. And if you don't know how to reach that other readership yet, then you might not want to be writing the books that can't reach them. You know what I mean?
So how are you reaching your readership?
So nowadays, a lot of it, let's say the early steps, a lot of it was reaching out to the authors who have that readership and helping each other in any way you can. So I have a list now, right? So it's a big part of it was back then building up my list through things that we had tried that we've talked about on our podcast before. Like we did Author Platform Rocket. We did Insta Freebie. We did a bunch of other groups where you just kind of get groups together and share each other's stuff and say, hey, can you sign up for my newsletter and you'll get this free book and all that stuff. Yeah. And so finding the right authors who are similar. And that's what's been key with the right genres. Like in fantasy, I tried to do this. It just wasn't working as well. I don't know if it's that fantasy is still more occupied by the traditional publishers, or if it's just that the lists aren't quite the same in fantasy genre versus sci-fi. But in sci-fi, it was a lot easier to get some big authors who are doing quite well to share your information with their list and to get a whole lot of people clicking on it and buying it, or a whole lot of people signing up to your newsletter or what have you. And I'm sure some people are doing it great in fantasy, but for me, it wasn't working out that way for some reason. But in the sci-fi, it totally worked out well.
So have you officially switched genres then, or are you still doing fantasy stuff?
I always do fantasy. Sometimes there's spaceships involved.
It's fantasy and space. Yeah. I know. Yeah. How much influence did you have over Andrew Lee's whole? No, that wasn't Andrew Lee. I'm sorry. I almost attributed something to Andrew Lee that was not his. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to go ahead and apologize to Chris Fox for almost attributing his little, what is it? The size mages in space kind of thing.
Tech Mage.
Tech Mage.
I think it's called. Yeah, Tech Mage Chronicles or something like that.
Which are cool. Do you think there's a market for that kind of thing right now?
So my books came out at the same time as his, about my Shadow Core books. And they seem to perform around the same, which was fine, but it wasn't amazing. So it depends what you're talking about. Like if you're writing books and you want to do fine, like a few $1,000s a month, that's cool. But if you want to make like $40,000 a month, like some of these people do, I don't feel like that genre is quite there. And watching other people who published in it too, it just didn't really seem to be there. And it's funny because people like him and maybe me and other people published some of these books in these genres. And then you watch other people start to do it too. And maybe because they're assuming that we did really well. Yeah. In reality, they didn't do that well.
No, they're following that. Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, and maybe they would do well. Maybe they could kill it, but they're not. They're diving in thinking, oh, that's where the gold pocket is. It's tech magery. And so if I write a tech mage book, I'm gonna hit strike gold. But you guys have written, how many books do you have right now that fall into your whole sci-fi fantasy thing?
Oh, under science fantasy, space fantasy. Well, so there's a funny thing that I've started to do where I've realized that I wrote a lot of these as kind of, they could be that, or they could be superhero books. So I'm kind of calling them sci-fi superhero. Sure. So it's all about semantics.
I'll give it to you.
But let's say, I don't know, under space fantasy, probably just like 8 or 9-ish, and it's confusing because I don't count what I count the Anderley books is that I call those paranormal sci-fi. Because it's more about vampires and werewolves in space and those kind of situations, sci-fi situations. So if you lump those in there too, then of course I have the 12 to 16 that I wrote with him, plus the other ones. And so it's all depends on what you count.
I mean, so the point there though is that you've got a body of work that is drawing in an income in SIPs that is attributing to it's streams feeding a larger river, right?
Yeah.
So the people coming in chasing the trend are writing one book and then becoming disappointed that they're not killing it. Right.
Right. And I would say that like I mentioned, these ones didn't kill it necessarily either. And a lot of it is finding that market. So somebody might come in and try to write a book copying Chris Fox, copying Tech Mage. And then, the book doesn't kill it, but they don't realize that he probably had like 20 authors, out there sharing that book. He probably had like 1 billion ads going for that book.
Yeah.
So as well as it did, it wasn't just because he wrote the book and put it out there. It was because he wrote the book and put it out there and hopefully found the right audience. Him as an example of anybody who does something similar and does well with the book.
Now, are you advertising?
Of course. My last book I published, I only did advertising. I didn't do any author shares. It was really cool. Yeah. So, and it did well. It hit.
How are you handling the ads? Are you doing exclusive Facebook, AMS, both? What?
Mostly AMS. Yeah. I do a little bit of Facebook, but I'm never really sold on it. Cause I've been doing well. I've been getting a lot of ads where I get like 10 cents or less a click.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm noticing that in my, I actually pulled all my ads, except for a couple of AMS ads. And because they were outperforming literally anything else I had out there. So I'm really not advertising at all at this point, other than just some default ads I left running.
Yeah. I just do like 10 to 15 on Facebook because I figure if I'm making enough and that's just extra exposure and it might not be paying off, it might be, I don't really care. I figure it's just extra exposure, but the Amazon ads are great. But here's what they did recently, which is weird. So I was starting to think I was on AMS King or something like this, right? Like I'm running ads. I had one that I spent like $1,200 on, but then it showed sales of $1,900. So I was like, well, it's a good deal. And then that doesn't count KU, so that might be more like $50,000. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Maybe not that much, but so I was like, this is not bad. And then for some reason I logged in about 4 days ago and all of a sudden that $1,900 showed up as $1,100 in sales. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. Okay. So I emailed KU and I haven't heard back, or KDP, and I haven't heard back on it. So I'm kind of confused what's going on. And I'm a little more hesitant to dump big amounts of money into AMS if they're going to do stuff like that.
Yeah. But the odds are it's going to come back as, it'll be corrected. Because it's the same story, I think, as what happens when you're looking at your reporting. Like you've gotten, you got $3,000 worth of sales last week, but when you checked it again at the front end of the new week, it's 2,500, and you don't know where those 500 sales went.
Hopefully, yeah.
But they tend to pop back up. Yeah.
Yeah, because the same thing happened on KU for the paid reads and all that stuff, where it was showing like X number, and then all of a sudden it showed a lot less. And same thing with the money for that same week that the ads thing went down. So yeah, it could have been something weird, some reporting glitch, or I have heard through the grapevine, and I don't know how true it is, that they've been doing like corrections to where they, I don't know, they feel like they overpaid, or they feel like people are scamming, or I don't know, but they've been going through and just like chopping off money, which is scary.
It's funny how they don't go and do any adjustments or corrections on the money you spend to advertise with them.
Right.
We felt like your ad didn't get as much exposure as we promised it would. So, here's $500 back. They never seem to do that.
Yeah. Or if I'm dumping in $1,100 into an ad thinking that it's doing well, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, it wasn't doing well. Sorry, misreported. Well, shouldn't they refund some of that ad money then? But
exactly.
Yeah, of course they won't.
They won't. Yeah. Well, that's the cost. That's part of the business, right?
Right.
If you're using advertising as a platform in your business, you that's the gamble, and that's why it's risky. But it also comes with greater reward. So and apparently you're seeing that. That's good.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
How are you handling advertising, that sort of thing? Like, are you using any tools or anything to come up with keywords or whatever? I'm nitpicking now. Also, I can improve my own AMS.
Playing around. I like KDP Rocket a lot. I think that's awesome, but I don't really use it much to do this because that would just take too much time, like to go through and do all the research, and it's just a lot of time.
Yeah.
So maybe
that's what I use.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think it's a great
keywords tool. On KU on the KDP page for sure. But with an ad, I'm running like 500 words. So like, who has time to run through and check all these 500? So what instead I do is I just put them up there and I put a bid. And if they're doing well, then yay, maybe I'll raise the bid. If they're doing crappy, then I lower the bid. And then I keep them around because, like, so let's say I'm targeting you. If I'm doing a bid for 31 cents, and it's not doing well, like it's not paying off well. Well, I could lower that to 11 cents.
Yeah.
And I still might get views if lots of people are clicking on you and just scrolling down because they want to find books like yours.
Right.
You know, I still might get views on that. So I just lower it to 11 cents and then leave it up there for eternity and see if it clicks. And it might or might not. Sometimes it does. Sometimes they do really well. Other examples like going from $1 to like 31 cents where it's, you know, anyway, too much in the weeds maybe.
Nah, I think we're just on the edge of the weeds. No, that's cool. You know, well, okay. So you're seeing growth. You've been at this for a year, which congratulations, man.
Full time for a year. So yeah, that's
full time for a year. And that's quite a statement. I mean, you know, I've known a lot of authors who went full time and then, you know, 3 to 6 months in went back to a full-time job.
Don't say
That's
it.
Scary,
Don't say it. Yeah. And it's been growing, which is the key, right? Because if it stopped, so I haven't like separated myself from Anderley by any means, but I haven't written a book with him now in a couple months. And so when I stopped doing that, you know, it's more just like a pause so that I could finally get some of my own stuff out there because I've been kind of holding off on all these ideas that I really want to write. And so now I'm busting them out there. There was like a month and a half where the money kind of fell and then all of a sudden it popped back up with the new release. So it was like kind of double what it was before. So it's been promising. And if I can keep that up or even half of that up, I'm still at where I was or a little bit better even. So in theory, it's not something I have to worry about yet. And it seems like as long as people keep buying books, you know, if we're smart enough to be people who figure out how to sell the books and write the books they want, then we shouldn't have a problem because we're always building up the mailing list. We're always trying new things to gain new readerships. We're doing the Facebook thing. The worst thing that could happen would be Amazon screws us with some change in the rules and how they do things and what percentage they give.
Right. Which can happen, which is why you should probably look at things like Draft to Digital, just throwing that out there. But yeah, no, it's cool. So you've got kind of a nice role going. You, I don't know. Are you running into what are some of the challenges now that you're full time that you didn't have when you were doing it on the side? Stress. Why are you getting stressed, man?
Yeah. So me and Nick, Nick and I talked about this at 20 Books Conference in Vegas last year. It's just like, well, the moment you go full time and you realize that if you have a crappy couple months, you're screwed. You can't pay your rent all of a sudden or something. You know, you can't afford your kids' daycare. Can't buy Starbucks coffee. Like there was a moment where back in the day I talk about sometimes that I was at Starbucks and my daughter was like, I want a lollipop. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if my credit card's going to pay for it. I might get rejected on all 5 credit cards. You know, like going back to a moment like that, that's scary. We don't want that.
Okay. But this is what I told Nick too. And he agrees. Eventually he agreed. But you know, it's what you pointed out earlier. You know 90 days in advance what kind of month you're going to have 90 days later, right? So if you know, I just had a crappy month. I have 90 days to build up enough cash to get through that crappy month. You see what I'm saying?
Where are you going to be able to get the cash from? Work in the corner?
You might have to go out. You might have to do some earning, man. You got to kick it up. You got to, okay, you're going to go sell some blood or whatever. But no, man, I'm talking, that's the moment. Instead of waiting until you don't have any cash, it's at that moment you got to go do things like, all right, I'm going to take this temporary job, you know, waiting tables, or I'm going to go mow some lawns, or I'm going to do something to make sure I'm earning.
Here's the thing. I live in the Bay Area. Let's not forget that. So like if I talk about that I don't have enough to cover expenses, like our monthly expenses when we figured it out with just daycare, rent, student loans and all that is like $12,000.
Yeah.
So if my book sales drop by half to be able to cover my expenses, while some people might have monthly expenses of like $1,000 or $2,000 where you could go wait some tables and pay your rent, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. I'm just saying you got 90 days to figure it out. Yeah. So if you have to go find another job, you got 90 days to find a job. And then I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the money that we make. I sound like a conceited jerk every time I talk about money. With all the people out there who are not making money yet, you're going to be making that in a year from now. So just pretend I'm talking to like you in a year from now. But I'm not like, you know, but I forgot where I was going with that. The point is,
I'm just trying to leave people with some hope, man, that if they're, you know, the good side, the good part about the way we get paid from the entities like KU.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody pays this way. They pay 60 to 90 days out. So the good part is we get a projection of what money we're going to make in 2 to 3 months from now. So if we have bad months, well, we don't spend as much if we can help it. You know, we dial back on some of the spendings, put some back in savings. You spend the good months building up for the bad months, and then you have fewer bad months. But I'm glad that we have brought it up, though, because this is a thing. Like, this is something that happens to a lot of authors who go full time, is that suddenly, you know, you don't have the cushion you had with a full-time job. Anytime you're an entrepreneur, that's the way it is.
Yeah, my wife likes to make fun of me because she's like, you're doing what you love. This is like the job of your dreams.
Right.
And you keep stressing out all the time. You're more stressed out now than you were. I'm having way more fun. I'm way happier, but I'm also way more stressed out at the same time. Also, what I was going to say is, like, to go back and get a day job now that would pay the same amount as what the books are paying. Yeah. It's just not possible with my resume anymore. So that's a tough. So like every time you even think about, oh, my book sales are falling, but you're like, but the day job that I could get based on my resume now wouldn't even cover the expenses that we're at now.
I know. Look, I hear you, man. I had this, my wife and I have had this conversation in the past. There was a point at which things weren't going so hot. I wasn't making very much money. And the discussion became, you know, maybe you should think about going and taking at least like a part-time job. Yeah. And I had to sit down and do math, which curse you for making me do, right? But I had to show I will literally lose money. We'll actually make less money if I stop doing what I'm doing, the breakneck pace of publishing, you know, writing and publishing continuously. If I stop doing that, we'll lose money while I have a job.
Yep.
And that's a weird reality to come to.
Yeah. And the hard part there is you start looking at, like, when you have one book that's successful, you start thinking, oh, all I got to do is double up, and then the next one will be successful in the next one. But it's not, of course. You know, like every book goes differently. So yeah, like even if it's in the same series, or even if it's like a totally another series but the same idea, it might sell half, or you never know, it might sell double. Yeah, so that's weird. But that's what I was talking about before we got on, is why I'm starting to just have more fun with it and just trying to just think, okay, what do I need to write next? No, what do I feel like writing next? What's going to be fun right now? And I've been doing that, and it's been great.
Yeah, I think it's the right choice. I mean, I think that's the exact right way to do that. You go off and build that business that allows you to enjoy the work you're doing. It makes it a lot easier to come back to it, put those heavy hours into it. I recently read a book, I think it's James Scott Bell wrote about pulp fiction writers. You know, actually the whole pulp fiction model for indie publishers, basically. And it hit me that we're much more like those pulp fiction guys than I ever would have thought. We are indie authors are essentially pulp fiction writers in the way we approach our career. It's more about getting good high energy stories out. You said this basically when you were talking about, you know, there's form and structure in the traditional world, in the script writing world, in the game world. And in the indie world, there's less of that, depending on what your audience is and what they're craving. And we build product for the reader. We build product the reader wants.
Yeah. Right? And if you try to go write that other stuff, a lot of these readers are going to rebel and say, this is crap. Why'd you do this?
Right.
This is depressing me, or it's too slow, or it's
too slow is the one, you know, yeah. So it's really kind of interesting to watch comments and reviews, because there's that crowd that wants me to be my personal demons here, but you know, there's that crowd that wants me to be the Dan Brown, spend 5 years researching before I write the book. Yeah. And they're very 1-star disappointed in me. And then there's that crowd that's like, I love reading Dirk Pitt novels, and you know, and I love watching Indiana Jones films, and I love National Treasure, and this was an exciting ride I couldn't put down 5 stars.
Yeah. So it's all about finding that audience that's the right ones that all give you 5 stars at some point.
Right.
Giving them all on your mailing list, right?
Do you how about you in reviews? How are reviews going for you?
They're going okay. So I don't want to talk too much about the pen name stuff, but I've recently been doing pen name stuff. Yeah. And that's been interesting. It's been more of a moneymaker. It's been, meaning that I've been making more money from it, but I've also been having way more fun. Like, I love writing my regular books, but on this, I'm just doing whatever the heck I want. Like, I feel like doing that. I'm going to put a goat with unicorn horn on, whatever. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Little horns, you know. if I feel like I haven't done that, but you know, like Butt
That's
Stallion,
coming up.
what's that video game? You know what I'm talking about? Borderlands. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
Borderlands.
they had a unicorn that had a rainbow tail and farts rainbows or something like that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like stupid stuff like that. If you want to put it in there, whatever. And those, I think it shows that people are like seeing that I'm having a lot of fun with it, and not just doing whatever I want fun, but like actual fun. Like the characters are way more fleshed out. So when I get my good reviews, they're like, wow. But then of course there's these people who are like, what the hell is this?
I want my money back. Not just for this book, for every book I've ever read.
Yeah. So those have been funny in that sense of the you see some major haters because you're not just trying to write to the market or write to the tropes or write to the structure. Just writing and having fun with it. And sometimes, like I said, it does better. People see that you love it and see that you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And that shines through. And then if you have a lot of swearing or other stuff in there, then yeah, that could get you both ways, right?
But you know, it does come down to know your audience, though. You know, what you're talking about is writing to a specific type of reader. Yeah. And there are enough of those readers out there willing to shell out the, you know, $4 or $5 or whatever your asking price is for your book to enjoy one of your books, which means that you get to enjoy their money. And that's what it's all about, right? You're just going out and finding the audience that resonates with the stuff that you love writing.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get these weirdos who think that you're like writing a market because you're suddenly writing what you love. And then you're thinking about the market, but it's not. Yeah. There's a big difference between that. I guess there's this big stigma now around like the right to market crowd.
Yeah. Well, this? Yeah, yes, I've heard this. I get flack for this all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But you've mostly just done sci-fi and now you're mostly doing thrillers. It's not like you're all over the place chasing every trend that there is.
Right, which is not what most people that get accused of writing to market are doing.
What are they doing?
They're going off and finding a market and writing books that appeal to that market. They're doing what you're talking about. They're doing, they're doing this the right way. I think a lot of people who complain about writers who write to market don't understand marketing.
Right.
And they're probably not doing very well. And I challenge you, listeners and viewers, if you disagree with me, you may confront me on this, but I think most of the people who complain about it don't actually know anything about it. They don't know what right to market means, and they don't know how to write to market.
Yeah. So, for example, if I was writing a book with lots of violence in it, I'll just use that as an example. Right. And then I was getting a lot of readers giving me 1 stars because, like, damn, there's too much blood in this dude. There's too much blood. Right. As a right to market person or as a marketer, I don't know. As a person who lets that affect my decisions, I might take out the blood in the next few books and start, or even revise the ones I have and do that. But I'm not going to do that because I like writing blood.
But the key difference here is you've determined your market. Your market is the people who will read the book that has that violence in it.
Yeah.
You're not chasing trends. Okay. You're sticking with your market. Now, if it came down to, I either take the blood out or I don't make a living,
right. I'm
guessing you would probably take the blood out.
Yeah. I'd probably go find some other market. Yeah. And then maybe that's the right to market aspect. I don't know. That's the weird part. Is like, if you're writing, like I wrote Falls of Redemption. That's a fun fantasy book. Some of my fans think it's the best book I've ever written. Some of them were diehard fans because of that book, but it didn't really sell well. And then I was like, well, I could keep writing books that don't sell well, or I could write something else that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, nobody ever complains about, Brad Pitt or Matt Damon taking a break from blockbuster films to make their project film, right? Their passion project.
They're acting to market.
Right. They don't. There's no acting to market. There's no directing to market. But it's the exact same thing. Now, if you go off and you write, a whole bunch of books that are going to sell well, and you're having fun with it, and you do that, and then you decide, I'm going to write. So I'm considering doing this. Right? I'm going to write literature. I'm going to write a book that is just pure literature, and it may not sell a single copy.
Yeah.
But by God, I'm going to write it because that's what I want to write. That's why you write the other books.
Yeah. So I have my literary novel out there that sells 2 copies a year. That's fine. I did it because I wanted to.
Right.
There are, I guess I see the criticism. There are some authors out there who basically just every time something's selling, they suddenly put out like 5 books in that something. And you could tell like every single one of them is written like following every single trope there is. And I don't want to judge other authors, but I'm
That's
saying
the
maybe
difference, though.
what they're talking about.
Yeah, I don't. That's not to me, and to most people who use the phrase "right to market." That's not writing the market.
Right.
That's chasing a market, like, or that's chasing trends,
Right.
And you're, writing to market means you go off and you decide, I want to write space vampire novels, and then you go find a market that appreciates space vampire novels. You don't say, oh, space vampire novels are hot, I'm going to write space vampire novels.
Yeah.
And even though I hate the idea, that's where I think the mix up is. So.
Well, yeah, and I think it's about the tropes too, like knowing what the tropes are, and it's funny because you might hear some of these people criticize those same authors as oh, they didn't follow the tropes, and at the same time they're like, well, they're just copying the tropes. So it's there's this weird conundrum going on there.
That's why you just don't pay attention to any of that crap and you just write what you love.
Exactly, and that's what I'm talking about. Just have fun with it, Like a good motto. If you guys hear me stressing out, just write me a quick message on Facebook. Say, have fun with it, dude.
That's what I'll do to you. I'm just going to randomly say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set an auto responder. Just throw that at you every, randomly every month or so.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it now. This newest series, the Starforged one that me and my wife outlined together, that one has been like this weird mixture because we spent so much time outlining it. We outlined it over a year of like all these date nights and stuff.
Yeah.
The series. It's also been like this kind of stress point where I'm like, I'm having fun with it, but at the same time, I feel all this pressure because there's all this story already figured out and all these high concepts. And and I feel like it's the best thing I've ever written, And so because of that, it's making it a little bit more stressful. But then at the same time, like I went out to write the other day, got myself a big, humongous mocha with some whipped cream on it. And I just sat back and I'm like, I'm gonna have fun. And I get some good stuff in there. So I think it's trying to figure out what it is that'll set off that have fun mode in you so that you can work on those projects that would normally stress you out.
I think it's interesting you got your wife involved in the outlining of that. Now, the last time I talked to you about your writing and your wife in the same sentence, it seemed to me like she was still kind of iffy about this whole thing. Has that changed?
Back. Yeah, no, it hasn't changed. She she liked the idea of doing that together and it was fun. But then we started to get ready to have a baby. So that all fell aside, of course, because it was like, where's the time? And then we moved also. And then I was like, you want to do some more talking about that? And she's kind of like, But then I'm also a control freak, and I'm the one writing it. So I have to kind of take it where I want. So I think there's part of that is when you work with somebody and you find out that they're going to take it their own way, then it doesn't really feel like yours as much anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some of that involved.
My wife and I have kicked around ideas for a while on something, and we finally agreed that she should write it because if I write it, it's not going to go the direction she wants.
Yeah.
And it's stressful, man. I mean, we did a whole road trip to Colorado Springs, and half the road trip was us talking about this book. Yeah. And I will confess, I was getting more and more frustrated because I'm like, I don't want to write this. I don't want to write the book that you're outlining. So you're going to have to write it. And if you're asking my opinion about these things, I hate that idea. I love that idea, So that kind of collaboration would be very tough.
And I think there's some stuff that we can write and some stuff we can't, as individuals. So like there's some cool ideas that she would have for the story, but I'm like, if I sit down to try to write that, I have no idea. It might take a paragraph because I would just be like, and all that happened because I don't know how to write that as a 5-chapter thing that it should be.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense in my brain, but somebody might be perfect for that.
I think what would work great for me and Karen, I may even actually try this because she comes up with some great ideas and she'll have dreams that are fully fleshed out novels. I'm like, well, you're so infuriating. Like, go write this and just become the billionaire that I want to be. Just go do it. I don't care. I just want these things to exist. But if she's like, maybe you should write it, and I will. But here's the deal: we'll have to put it in writing, man. Like, okay, I, Kara Tomlinson, hereby hand over all rights to this story to Kevin Tomlinson, who's going to finish it the way he sees fit.
I will not be able to revise it and change it and yell at him for screwing it up. And
it's the yelling at me that I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to encourage her to write. Are you trying to get your wife to actually write?
She won't. Partly also because English is a second language or a fifth language or whatever.
Have her write it in her language, man.
All right. Yeah, I had
one.
And
then you can translate it
in her language. It was kind of cool. Or a guy did it, for free.
A guy did it. Did you? Now, did she read it in her language?
I don't know if she did. I think her grandma and her aunt and some other family members did. which is
I think that's very interesting.
yeah. Well, they all said that the translator did an amazing job. So I'm like, well, was it me or was it the translator?
I know. That's the question I would have. That's the thing that would keep me awake at night. Because if the book tanked, it would be the same thing. I'd be like, was it a crap book or did the translator screw me? So that would be tough. That's
Exactly.
cool. So you had someone do it for free. Are you getting all your books translated or what?
No. It was BabbleCube. BabbleCube.
Oh, BabbleCube, yeah.
So that's what I mean by free is like it was a royalty share thing. But
yeah,
I think I've had like $5 in royalties over 2 years from BabbleCube. So not something I necessarily get behind.
yeah.
Because of that, I think you're familiar. We talked a long time ago where I had a French company, a subgroup of Hachette, come to me and buy the rights for some of my books, and that was cool because I got a nice advance. And they did a print run, and it ended up selling like 10,000 copies in its first week or something like that, which is pretty exciting. And so like things happened that I think all were related to BabbleCube because they already saw I had books translated. There's a Turkish one too. So I wouldn't say that anything that you ever try is a complete loss. Either you just learn that it's not something that works for you, or somewhere down the line it might pay off in some other random way, right?
Yeah. That's exactly right, man. That's the right attitude.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we're toward the end of this. I want to respect your time and all. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. So the book that's out now, as of this interview, it's not yet out. It's in pre-order. But the book that's hitting shelves is Star Forged.
Yeah.
And that's sci-fi. No, was it? What's the
space superheroes?
Space superhero fantasy.
Yeah. I call it like superheroes in space in this science fantasy novel.
Okay, man. I want to see the bisect category for this book.
Yeah. Oh, I think the key is to pick one and go with it. So I'm still calling it space opera or space fantasy when I refer to it usually, but then I'm saying superheroes because I'm referring them to superheroes. They basically get the same their powers in a similar way as like Fantastic Four.
Okay.
So it's not like they go to a magic school and learn how to cast Alohomora or anything like that. Straight up, they get powers. So you want to call that fantasy or you want to call that superheroes? Where do you draw the line as superheroes versus fantasy? Quick.
Where do I draw the line between superheroes and fantasy or superheroes and sci-fi?
No, magic versus superheroes.
Like, because magic can be part of the superhero. We know magic is part of the superhero landscape because Doctor Strange and Dr. Fate and a whole lot of magic-based characters. So I think it's more about motives and the style of storytelling. So is the character and their abilities fairly central to the story? That's a superhero.
And fighting villains and evil.
Fighting a villain, taking down. It's the idea, because you've also got, is Ripley in Aliens a superhero because she has a giant armor that she wears?
I think that's a little more stretch, but sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's Tony
Stark. It's
Tony Stark has armor, but I think the difference is she had armor because of an opportunity of the story.
Right.
This was a tool resource she stumbled on.
Yeah. And
it wasn't like now she goes around, fighting aliens in this armor.
Wasn't part of her identity.
Yeah. Right. It's there you go. Is it a part of the character's identity now?
Yeah.
Like this ability. But then again, you've also got stories like True Blood, I forget the character's name that the whole Charlotte Harris thing is. Yeah. Suki something. She has a paranormal ability. You could potentially treat that like a superhero story. It's like Buffy. Buffy's got superpowers.
Superhero stuff, yeah. So it's all of that kind of stuff where it's kind of semantics, kind of how you take the story.
This is interesting. I'm going to be thinking about this for a while now because I want to know where that line is. Because I like the whole superhero landscape. I like those stories.
And a lot of superhero authors get pissed because urban fantasy is always showing up in the superhero categories.
Yeah.
But then it's a pretty thin line. So how do you draw that? And then the only difference is mine is now urban fantasy in space in the future. So future fantasy.
And you're just like, all right, just throw a trope at me. I'm going to throw it. It's going to be in there. Whatever. It's a potpourri of fiction.
Sure. It's really just the story I want to tell, though.
I love that, man. I think, and if what's great about what you're doing, what you've got going is it's not just, I'm going to just write what I want to write. It's I'm going to write what I write, and there's an audience for it, and so I'm going to make a living off of it. Yeah, and that's the dream right there.
Yeah, so there is like Falls of Redemption, the fourth book in that series. I always wanted to write. I haven't because I know it won't make any money, or it won't make much money. So that kind of sucks, and it's kind of lame that we have to think about it some ways. But it is the truth that you do want your book to sell, and if people aren't leaving reviews and they're not paying for books 2 and 3, that's kind of a voter issue. Like they've all voted that they don't really want book 4. Maybe 100 of them do, but the rest of the thousands of audiences, hundreds of thousands, whatever.
Just go back and rewrite all those books and put them in space, and give him superpowers.
Yeah.
Just do, well, I mean, that's what I think Brian Cohen did that with some of his books.
I have thought about it, not for that series, but for my werewolf series, Hounds of God, because it would fit really well with a lot of this stuff. But I would piss off people and I'd feel untrue to myself. So not something I can do.
I don't know.
Those series.
I don't know. Me. I'm controversially, I am a iterative publisher. I think that work doesn't have to be carved in stone. I think, I've got my book. So I wrote Evergreen in one day, right? It's a paranormal thriller, like a Dean Koontz style thing, right? Really could be a superhero story ultimately. I'm going to go back and retouch it because because it was written in one day, 60,000 words in one day. There are some errors. So I'm going to go back and touch that up and fix it up. And I may even write a sequel to it. So
put some space dragons in there.
I'm going to put some space dragons. I'm not going to put space dragons in it, but one can hope and one can dream. All right. All right, man. Where can people find you and your work online?
So JustinSloanAuthor.com, or I have a Facebook group called The Sloan Zone. So you can check that out.
The Sloan Zone. Why am I not a member of the Sloan Zone yet?
Why are you not, man? Because you're not a fan, because you hate me.
I'm a hater. I'm gonna start my own Facebook group, Sloan Haters.
Sloan Haters. Actually, that might get me more sales. So it's kind of, we can start a feed.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, if you can get people to unite against you, it will boost your sales. I've noticed this.
Yeah, I had it happen recently to me, and I do think it hurt me and it helped me. It was like a double-edged sword, right? Or it was a one side of the sword was a nice cushion and the other was a blade.
Oh, nice.
Not a double-edged sword. The opposite.
Well, that's a whole can of worms I wish we had gotten to earlier, but we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I appreciate you being on the show, man. You hang out. Now, everybody else, you may be hearing the groovy theme music. You may dance in place as well. I'm going to have some industry news and other things on the other side of this break, so stick around. Justin, thanks so much for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. We'll see you all next time.
Hear your book the way it was meant to be heard. With a fully custom soundtrack based on your material. An album of music that perfectly fits your characters, your settings. Hear your book today. SonataInscribe.com.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Justin Sloan. Got something useful out of that. You can find pretty much all things Justin Sloan. If you go onto the show notes of this episode, there are links to his website, JustinSloanAuthor.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Justin M. Sloan, because there are other Justin Sloans in the world. Go check that out. You can find all the links to that at wordslingerpodcast.com on the show notes. Or if you're on YouTube, just look down below. You can find the link to all that stuff there. Now, I don't want to delay us in this because there's some really cool, interesting stories I want to hop into, but let's jump on in to the industry news. Now, first up, BookFunnel announces print codes. This is exciting news. This is something, now I'm reading this off of the BookFunnel blog, which you can check out. This is the Friday, July 13th edition. This is an announcement that they're adding basically the ability to give readers a code to allow them to download a book while you are at conferences and conventions and book signings and that sort of thing. Now, if you're not familiar with BookFunnel, BookFunnel was created by a good friend of mine, actually, Damon Courtney. He lives pretty close to me here in Texas. BookFunnel allows authors to send their readers a link that allow them to download that book on any of the platforms they prefer, and it supports them the whole way. So sounds familiar, right? That's kind of the draft to digital model in a way. But what BookFunnel does, it's pretty unique, is they take the burden of support off of the author. So when you have a reader, a very kind elderly person who does not fully understand their e-reader device or the app on their phone or whatever they're using to read, you don't have to worry about it. You can send them the link to download the book, and BookFunnel takes care of all of it for you. Now, this has been great. They've got some other features that are very cool. You can do direct sales through BookFunnel now, which is very nice. They use PayPal and Square, and I believe Gumroad is an option. I may be wrong on some of these, but you can definitely do direct sales. So if you've ever thought about that, this is a great way to do it. One of the cool things that Damon's done recently with this is the ability to drag and drop your book content. So I can drag and drop my EPUB, my Mobi, my PDF, and just that's it. I don't have to go searching for it. I don't have to browse for it. It's all right there. So that's cool. And that's something that has really impressed me. But and Damon's constantly tinkering and upgrading this thing. This is one of the better developed author-related products out there, in my opinion. I mean, it's getting closer and closer to flawless. I mean, I have a hard time finding flaws in it as it is. So, but now with print codes, this is something very cool. I think I'm going to read directly from the blog posting because this sums it up better, I think, than I could. What is a print code? It's a tiny little code you can give to a reader to download a copy of your book. Print them on postcards, bookmarks, business cards. Write them on the back of their hand in black marker, whatever you want. Each code is good for one download, and once it's redeemed, it can't be used again. Give a reader a print code and direct them to mybookcode.com where they can download the book, and BookFunnel will handle the rest. Super easy. I could not agree with that statement more. This is the easiest way I can think of to promote your book when you're at conventions and conferences and book signings. When you're just out in public, you just went to get a coffee. You just went to grab a sandwich. You're wearing one of your Written World Kevin Tumlinson designed Did I Mention I'm a Novelist t-shirts, and someone asks you about it. It's a great way to break the ice and increase your discoverability. So I'm going to read again from the post here. What are the advantages of print codes? Each code is only good for one reader to download. There are no public links available to be passed around the interwebs. Once a code is redeemed, the reader has 14 days to download the book. When it's gone, then it is gone, rather. Downloaded ebooks are watermarked, and this is to help protect you in the event of piracy. It may not stop someone from uploading your book to a piracy site, but what it does is tell you who did it. So you can go after them, take legal action if you need to, or ask them to pull it down. If you just want to be a nice person about it, you can just ask politely that they take it down. Readers can optionally join your mailing list when they redeem their code. Now this is one of my favorite features about this thing, because it means that you can now turn these physical interactions, these 3D world interactions that you have with folks, into an opportunity to grow your mailing list. They can, you can require them to sign up to your mailing list just to get this freebie, just like you could from your website. So it becomes a funnel. Okay, that is incredible. I love that feature. I mean, I love that that's there. It's optional, but I think you should do it. It's a great way to build your platform, build your list. You know who is downloading your book. Even if they don't join your mailing list, you can send them a thank you follow-up email. And you can use that to promote the next book, to encourage them to, maybe they get a discount code. Maybe you're asking them to get on your mailing list at that point. There's a lot you can do with this. This is smart functionality on the part of Damon and his crew. So check it out. If you want to see this story, you can do so in the show notes of this episode at wordslingerpodcast.com or on YouTube or Facebook just down below. Or you can go there directly. I've got a link for you. If you go to bit.ly/155-bookfunnel, you'll find that story. Now, next up, Kobo says, keep your book description shorter than 4,000 characters or it will be excluded from Walmart.com. Now, you may or may not know this story, but Walmart.com is now going to become a sales channel for Kobo, a distribution channel for Kobo. If you are distributing through Draft2Digital, by the way, to Kobo, your books can be included on Walmart.com. So this is huge for a lot of authors. This puts Kobo in the same space as Amazon, honestly, in terms of competitiveness in the marketplace. But this is a potential. This is something you're going to want to pay attention to. I'm picking this story up from the Digital Reader. Nate was nice enough to include a mention of Draft2Digital in this article, but I'll get to that in just a second. Quoting from this article, as you may have heard, Kobo is going to be launching in Walmart in the U.S. very soon. We want to let you know that due to a limitation on Walmart.com's side, they are not able to accept book descriptions longer than 4,000 characters. This limit includes spaces, punctuation, and all embedded HTML. A description that is longer than 4,000 characters will not completely block the book from being sent to Walmart.com, but it will result in the description showing as blank on Walmart product pages. So that is something you're going to want to pay attention to, this character limitation. Now, Nate was kind enough to mention Draft2Digital, saying if you're an author who uses book distributors like Draft2Digital to put your books in Kobo, now would be a good time to check your book descriptions and make sure they are compatible with Walmart's rules. Here's the thing. We already have a 4,000 character limit on Draft2Digital's side. So you cannot enter a book description larger than 4,000 characters anyway. Now that may not be true on other distributors or aggregators, so you're going to want to take a look and make sure that you're in compliance. But we at Draft2Digital will make sure your book is in compliance with all of our vendors, and this is part of our vendor relationship with Kobo. So 4,000 characters is the limit. If you're going more than 4,000 characters in your book description, you are doing this wrong. Talk to me. Because read my book, Write a Better Book Description. Because you can get this in far under 4,000 characters. Next up is I'm going to call this my story of the week. This is something that's really cool for me, really fascinating. But this also comes from Digital Reader. Thanks, Nate. How to lease a virtual Mac online to upload ebooks to iBooks. For the longest time now, the only way to get your book into the Apple iBook Store, or what's now called the Apple Bookstore, was to use a Mac. Or you could use an aggregator such as Draft2Digital to make sure your book. I think we're pretty much the only ones who can do this. We have this relationship with Apple so that you can upload your book to one source and it'll distribute to Apple Books as well as the others. So that's what a lot of people use us for, because Macs are prohibitively expensive for some people. You know, a baseline Mac might cost you a couple of grand. So this has been an issue. There's also the issue of certain software that people like, such as Vellum, is proprietary to the Mac. You can't run that on Windows. So in order to use that, you need an Apple system. But now, without having to drop thousands of dollars in cash, you can actually lease a Mac online, essentially, a virtual Mac. They'll let you run Vellum. They'll let you go to the Apple Bookstore and run practically any other Mac proprietary software you'd like to run. The article gives a nice little list. There's like 5 of these that you might want to check out. The one that I have tried and played around with, although I'm a Mac user, but I was interested in this. This is something I wanted way back when. I wanted this to exist for a long time now. But Mac in Cloud was the one I tried, and it happens to be the top of the list here. It's $1 an hour to $49 a month. And it's listed as potentially the cheapest option if you know what you're doing with a Mac. A good solution might be to start with one of its better plans and then scale back to the $1 per hour plan once you're all set up. But I've played around with this, and it is, if you are familiar with the Mac operating system, it is kind of a nice virtual machine. But this is very cool. Now, some of the others listed: Mac Stadium, VM OS X, xcloud.me, and Xcode Club. These are all virtual Macs with various tiers of pricing. Some are more than others. Some offer more features than others. But what this will let you do is get past the barrier of, you can buy an inexpensive laptop. And I mean, folks, I have found brand new Windows-based machines that can do everything you need to do as an author for, $200 or less. So these are good investments if you need the equipment. But if you need Mac, pop in an extra $50 a month to 20, maybe $25 a month will allow you to expand what you can do with that machine. So this is good to try out. Now, if you need these services, you don't necessarily have to use Mac proprietary software to do this stuff. As an example, I'm just going to wedge Draft2Digital in here because that's what I do. But Draft2Digital will convert your ebook for you for free. It'll get your book onto Apple Books for free. You can do the cool looking templates, which are very similar to Vellum, for free. So all that stuff is available for you with no extra charge. But if you are dead set, you want the power of Vellum. Vellum is a nice piece of software I use myself. If you want to be able to go direct to Apple and not go through an aggregator, maybe you just want to save the 10% or something along those lines, then you can look into this Mac in the cloud, virtual Mac leasing, and that might be the road for you. So that's it. That's a pretty cool thing. I just think that's cool. I love the whole virtual machine thing. What I want is to be able to run this on an iPad or a tablet of some kind, so that I could use a full Mac OS on an iPad, for example. What's up, Apple? Why are you not putting full Mac OS on Apple? Whatever. But that is your industry news for this week before I get into a rant and tirade over that sort of thing. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wordslinger podcast. I hope you got something fantastic out of it. I know I did. I continue to streamline and refine my process for producing these episodes. You have no way of knowing this, but I've recorded this entire episode at least 3 times today because of various issues. But one of the things I've done is I'm recording directly into Final Cut Pro 10 right now, rather than recording into outside software. I'm just dropping it directly on the timeline. I think that's going to save me some time. I'm continuing to iterate and improve the process, we'll say. But there were some hiccups. The first time I recorded the episode, I didn't realize my microphone was defaulting to the built-in mic on the Mac, and it sounded like garbage. I was this close to deciding, But no, my commitment to you, dear listener and dear viewer, I couldn't do it to you. So, but anyway, I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know. Pop on over to wordslingerpodcast.com. Leave me a message. You can leave me a voicemail from that site, or you can actually pop in and send me an email, or pop something into the comments below. I'm trying to get a little better at paying attention to the YouTube comments. I'm terrible about it because it's not easy for me to do. I keep having to hop between, whatever. You've heard this story before. I'm not going to get into that, but reach out to me. I am reach-outable. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Take care of yourselves out there. It's the summer. We're traveling. We got more road trips and things like that going on. I want you to be safe out there. Have fun with your family, make some great memories, but stay safe. Come back next week. We'll talk some more. So God bless you. Have a fantastic weekend. And I'll see you next week. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Wordslinger podcast. Now, you can support this show by visiting wordslingerpodcast.com. That's where you're going to find back episodes, books by me, and links to anything and everything Wordslinger. And be sure to subscribe to this show on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and anywhere else fine podcasts are sold. I'm Kevin Tomlinson. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Wordslinger.